Hello and welcome to Bust or Trust, a kids' mystery podcast. I'm Tiernan.
And I'm Athena. Bust or Trust is the podcast where we unravel the world's greatest mysteries with help from you, our chief detectives.
We present all the best evidence and then ask you to decide, which team are you on?
Are you a myth buster like me?
Or are you a myth truster like me? We look into all sorts of strange stories from around the world. No mystery is too big for us. Like, what did people say stinky feet smelled like before cheese was invented?
A better question would be, why would we invent food that smells like stinky feet?
Well, maybe we didn't. Maybe eating cheese made our feet cheesy, and if we stopped eating it, they'd smell really nice again.
That's a great idea, Tiernan, but I've got a better one. Do you know how I get rid of my cheesy feet? I change my socks.
Ooh, good tip. Anyway, we tell you at the end of the show just how to get in touch so you can let us know if you're on Team Buster or the best one, Team Truster.
So, chief detectives, get ready to take notes and start putting together your case while we have a quick word with the grown-ups.
The case.
Oh, there's mud on the floor. Tiernan, did you forget to wipe your shoes before you came in?
I did. Sorry, I'll get the mop. But do you know what? You should be happy that we know how these footprints got here.
Why should I be happy?
Because it means they're not spooky. We hear so many spooky things here at Bust or Trust HQ that I think it's a relief to finally have some goings-on that are explained and not strange.
Oh, Tiernan, I keep telling you there are no spooky things at Bust or Trust HQ. Oh, unless you're talking about the mystery of my missing sandwich. I made a lovely peanut butter sandwich to eat for my lunch and...
Ghosts, evil spirits, the sandwich dragon, the only possible explanations that could explain the mystery of the disappearing sandwich.
Perhaps you can provide some evidence for the existence of those things later. But I would never blame footprints on anything otherworldly, though. Footprints just aren't very scary.
Only a person who hasn't heard of the devil's footprints would say that.
Does the devil leave muddy footprints in his HQ too?
Well, maybe. He's known for being a little bit inconsiderate. But I'm talking about the devil's footprints that were found in South Devon in England. And get this, we're not talking about one or two footprints. We're talking about thousands. These ones went on for over 100 miles.
Wow, that's a big HQ.
It wasn't in his office. These were footprints left outside in the snow. Let me explain. As I said, the devil's footprints were found in Devon, England in 1855. Devon is a beautiful part of the country, famous for its beaches and scenic rocky coastline. It's also very well known for its cream teas, Dartmoor National Park, which is famous for its wildlife, and it is home to the River Exe, which runs for over 60 miles. The River Exe is very much a part of this mystery. In February 1885, Devon experienced extremely cold weather. So cold that the River Exe froze. It snowed heavily and all the snow settled on the now icy river. The people of Devon woke up to see the river and landscape covered in thick, deep snow. And in this snow were footprints that ran for miles on end. Who or whatever left them was definitely getting their 10,000 steps in.
But there's nothing really mysterious about footprints in the snow, is there?
Oh, yes, there is. These footprints were in the shape of hooves.
Oh, I see. For years, people have pictured the devil with red horns, cloven feet, and holding a trident. That's like a pitchfork with three pointy ends. So they thought it was the devil that left the footprints.
Exactly that. What other explanation could there be?
Donkeys, cows, horses, goats, mules. Need I go on? Oh, you know what we're going to need?
Evidence.
Oh, I was going to say a sandwich, because it's so hard to think about cases on an empty stomach. But I will struggle on. Let's hear some evidence.
First piece of evidence.
The first piece of evidence are all the official records of the shape of the strange footprints. Whatever made them definitely had hooves. And it was standing on 2 feet. A letter sent to the Exeter and Plymouth Gazette at the time said, "The impression of the foot closely resembles that of a donkey's shoe and measures from 1.5 inches to, in some cases, 2.5 inches across, here and there appearing as if the foot was cleft. The impression of the shoe was continuous and perfect. In the centre, the snow remains entire, merely showing the outer crust of the foot, which therefore must have been convex." Convex means curved and rounded, so sounds like a hoof to me. This letter also observed that the tracks seemed to be made by a biped. That means something that walks on 2 feet, like a human, or monkey, Or maybe like the devil.
Maybe, but that same writer said that the locals, because they couldn't explain where the footprints came from, thought they were made by Satan, otherwise known as the devil. Not because they had evidence, but because they were, and I quote, full of superstition. He's right. Back then, people were very superstitious. They would often blame things they didn't understand on magic or the supernatural because of their beliefs. When people believe strongly in something, they look for anything to prove that it's true. So when they saw the strange footprints, they didn't try to find out what really made them. They just said it was something like Satan. That's not very scientific, is it?
But the person who wrote this letter wasn't the only person to observe the strange shape of the footprints. Get this, a newspaper called Truman's Exeter Flying Post published a piece about it. They called what they found foot tracks of a most strange and mysterious description. Soon people all over the country were talking about it too. In Illustrated London News, a letter was published that said, "The marks which appeared on the snow, to all appearances, were the perfect impression of a donkey's hoof." Letters found much later after the incident, written by a Reverend H.T. Ellercombe, who was a vicar in the area, also described the odd nature of the footprints, and even included tracings of them, all confirming the donkey-like hoof shape. What kind of a creature has donkey-like hooves?
Ooh, I don't know. A donkey? I agree these footprints probably did appear, and they probably were in this strange shape, but this isn't evidence they were left by the devil. Did you know llamas, pigs and deer have cloven feet? This evidence doesn't rule out another, more typical creature that could have made them.
Oh, really? Well, wait until you hear piece of evidence number 2.
Second piece of evidence.
The second piece of evidence is the distance the footprints ran. Remember our letter writer to the Exeter and Plymouth Gazette? He also said, "The creature seems to have frolicked about through Exmouth, Littleham, Lympstone, Woodbury, Topsham, Starcross and Teignmouth. There is hardly a garden in Lympstone where his footprints are not observable." It basically ran all over Devon. There was more about this in the Illustrated London News too. They reported, "When we consider the distance that must have been gone over to have left these marks, I must say in almost every garden, on doorsteps, through to the extensive woods of Luscombe, upon commons in enclosures and farms, the actual progress must have exceeded 100 miles. R. H. Busk, in an article published in Notes and Queries during 1890, stated that footprints also appeared further afield, as far south as Totnes and Torquay. These are all places in southwest England, and they are all very far apart.
I see what you're saying. What kind of animal runs that kind of distance?
The devil?
Or maybe it was more than one animal. One animal might not cover 100 miles in one night, but several animals could. And also, let's remember, we're talking about 1855. Communicating with people isn't as easy as it is now. Neither is travelling. So how could people back then even work out that the footprints ran for hundreds of miles? No one would have been able to follow them in a single day. Also, are we sure these reports are even correct? One of your sources is from 1890, nearly 40 years after the footprints were seen. That doesn't sound very reliable to me. I'm starting to question if they went as far as people said they did.
Well, maybe they could shout across fields? "Hey, mate, you got footprints in your field?" "Oh, yeah, I have loads. I'll check with my neighbour. Yeah, oh, he has too." Or maybe they didn't figure it out in a day. It took around 2 weeks for the news to be reported in other parts of the country, so it could have been figured out over time as more and more people reported what they saw.
Or maybe the footprints were not as spread out as we think and other animals were responsible. Did you know there was a rumour that someone in the area had a pet kangaroo that escaped? People like to collect exotic pets in those days, but more importantly, kangaroos are bipeds and they can cover a lot of ground. They can travel at 30 miles an hour.
I knew you were going to blame it on a kangaroo. And that's a sentence I don't think we've ever said on this podcast. People did think this at the time because there was a well-known menagerie in the area. A menagerie is like a small zoo in someone's private home. But no one ever proved that a kangaroo had actually escaped. And also, it would have been pretty hard for an escaped kangaroo to cross the estuary of the Exe River. An estuary is where a river meets the sea, because that part had not frozen over. If the kangaroo had come from this particular menagerie, it would have had to cross this estuary to make the footprints that were found. Plus, kangaroos don't have hooves.
Okay, forget about the kangaroo, but I do have another possible explanation for the footprints, which have nothing to do with a devil. Author Geoffrey Household said that maybe an experimental balloon was released by mistake from Devonport dockyard. Hot air balloons had recently been invented, but it was still early days, so they weren't very good. And they would often be set off by accident. Around the time of these footprints being found, a balloon had been released by mistake nearby, with the ropes and shackles that were supposed to keep it on the ground still attached, dangling down. These ropes and shackles could have left marks just like footprints.
Then why didn't someone just say their hot air balloon had escaped?
Good question. The balloon wrecked a number of conservatories, greenhouses and windows before it finally crashed. If your balloon had wrecked a lot of private property, you'd let people blame the devil too.
That's true. But shackles dragging along the snow would have left straight lines, like railway tracks, not actual prints, which is what people saw. It's looking good for Team Truster. Everything is pointing towards devil's footprints. I think it's time for the third piece of evidence.
Third piece of evidence.
The creature was very interested in people's homes and visited churches and other strange places. Our friend from the Exeter and Plymouth Gazette wrote, "Footprints were to be seen in all sorts of unaccountable places, on the tops of houses, narrow walls, in gardens and courtyards enclosed by high walls and palings, as well as in the open fields." People reported the footprints leading up to their front doors, like the creature was delivering letters. Also, the footprints were not continuous. Sometimes there were rings around churches, but no footprints leading up to those rings. How would an ordinary animal do that? Lots of people also thought it was the devil because it entered people's private land in a way normal animals don't. They thought the devil was looking for sinners. And when was the last time you saw a donkey on a roof? Or a kangaroo?
I haven't seen one recently, but animals do go into people's homes and gardens. I've got a cat that likes to visit my back garden, and I think I might have to start charging the foxes rent. They're always sniffing about.
Haha, well, this was the 1850s. You're talking about domesticated animals that aren't really afraid of humans now, but in the 1850s, they definitely would have been. City foxes are very common now. 200 years ago, they were much more shy. These hoof prints were also found circling churches. How would an animal know what a church is? It's almost like the creature who left the hoof prints was looking for something or somebody. Animals generally don't make a habit of running circles around churches or walking up and down paths to people's front doors, like this creature did.
It could have still been a hoax. If I wanted to pretend the devil had visited, I'd run around churches too.
But how do you explain the hoof prints suddenly trailing off? People playing a trick would have made footprints in a continuous line. But these hoof prints would often go off into trails and stop suddenly. The pattern of the hoof prints was suspect enough to make people think it wasn't a person having a laugh or a normal animal.
That's a good point. A big snowfall could easily reveal animals trying to blend in and hide. Item 1 on the emergency farm meeting. How do we return our library books without the humans finding out that we can read?
I don't know, sheep. There is snow everywhere. They will see our tracks all the way to the front door. Nay.
Yes, horse, and if they realise it's us taking out all the books on military planning and the art of war, they'll work out our plan to take over the farm.
Good point, chicken. Maybe you could just try really hard with your wings and fly the books back.
We've tried this, sheep, over and over. All I can manage is a couple of metres, and then I need you lot to push me off a wall to achieve that.
Nay. Maybe we could build a catapult and somehow throw the books back. We need wood, nails, elastic bands, and thumbs. Has anyone got the use of thumbs yet?
It's not going to happen, horse. When will you accept it will never happen, and we'll never be able to pick up a hammer or give a thumbs up?
It's so cruel. Okay, how about we cover up our tracks?
But who will cover up the tracks we make whilst we cover up our tracks?
Or we could take the books back and leave the tracks in the snow.
You've given up, traitor.
No, it's not a bad plan. Remember when we ate all the carrots in the field and the humans thought they'd made the carrot spirit unhappy?
They even made up a carrot dance to try and fix it.
And remember when we drank all the water in the pond and the humans thought they made the water spirit angry?
And they made up a water dance to try and fix that.
They'll probably find a way to explain our tracks away too. So it's settled. We leave at nightfall, take all the books back, and when the humans find the tracks, they'll have a new dance to make up.
Quick, Farmer Joe is coming. Or look at my lovely animals, all resting, not doing anything suspicious. What's all this? Books on military planning, how to escape in 10 easy steps. I don't remember taking them out or leaving them here, but that's the only explanation for how they got into the barn. Oh, my memory is terrible. I'll take them back tomorrow. You lot pushed me off that wall 24 times for nothing.
Animals that can read. How would they turn the pages of the books?
I once saw a lizard flip over a rock using its tongue.
Ugh. Imagine being the next person to borrow a book that a horse licked.
I would never go to a library again.
Quite. Okay, enough about animals who know their phonics. Let's recap the evidence.
Evidence recap.
The first piece of evidence is that there are lots of official records of the extremely heavy snowfall and the hoof-shaped footprints. We definitely know that this actually happened and made lots of people talk about it for years and years.
But some of the evidence comes from somebody who didn't even believe the devil made the footprints. And lots of the reports come from many weeks, even years after the events, so they can't be trusted. People might remember things differently than how they actually happened, or they might forget important details. This means that reports might not always be reliable because our memories can change.
The second piece of evidence is that the footprints were discovered for miles and miles. It would have been impossible for a normal animal to cover that much ground in one night.
But we're not actually sure how they found out how far the footprints went. If we don't know how they were able to measure the distance of the footprints, how do we know the reports were real?
The third piece of evidence is the footprints went up and down paths to people's houses and around churches, and they were not continuous. It looked like the creature who made them was looking for people or something.
But this doesn't prove it was the devil. It could have been lots of different animals, or a hot air balloon, or it could have even been a hoax.
So now we're hoofing it over to you, Chief Detectives.
What do you think? Are you a Devil's Footprints mythbuster?
Or a Devil's Footprints myth truster? Get in touch and let us know your thoughts, and most importantly, which side you're on. I'm pretty sure the Chief Detectives are going to walk alongside me with this one.
No way. I think Team Buster is on the right track. Send us your voice notes with an explanation of why you're a myth truster or myth buster when it comes to the Devil's Footprints.
All you have to do is ask your grown-ups to help you email us your voice notes or thoughts to hello@bustortrust.com.
Tell us your name, age, what you think all the evidence means, and please make sure your grown-ups give us permission to use your voice notes or emails in our next episode.
You can also send us a question on Spotify Q&A, but please get permission from your parents and don't include any personal details so we can publish them safely. We won't always be able to use all of them.
But we do love to hear them, and here are some thoughts from you lot, our Chief Detectives, on the last few episodes.
We have had this email in from Emma about our episode on the Mongolian deathworm. And she says, "Hi Tiernan and Athena, I'm Emma and I'm a mythbuster on the Mongolian deathworm because I've seen sand boas in person at a reptile show and the ones with their natural colours fit the descriptions of the Mongolian deathworm perfectly." Wow, Emma, that is very, very good detective work there. I'm still not sure. I think the Mongolian deathworm could exist alongside sand boas. They could be wonderful neighbours together and maybe help, lend each other sugar and stuff. Thanks loads for writing in.
We had an email from Amelia who says, "Buster for every episode except Bigfoot." That's fair enough. I mean, if I was going to believe in any of the mysteries we've done, I think I might choose Bigfoot, actually. Oh, and she's got a mystery for us too. Are there actually monsters under your bed? Amelia, there are no monsters under your bed. There's no evidence for it.
Not under yours, but there are several under mine, and it's getting really annoying for storage reasons. There's so many things I want to put under there, and they just keep eating them. It's driving me mad.
Stop blaming your messy room on monsters, Tiernan.
Athena. Okay, Max has sent us this message on the Spotify Q&A about our episode on the Bay of Jars. "Dat be so reals, massive evidence." That's right, Max. Dat be so reals because of all the massive evidence. I entirely agree, and thanks for listening.
Rosie Beauregard commented on our Spotify Q&A on the episode about time travel. "I'm a myth truster because Einstein talked about wormholes to the past, and he was one of the smartest men that ever lived." Do you know what? If you become a team truster because you've listened to Einstein and not Tiernan, I think that's fair.
So Natalie has left us a message on the Spotify Q&A on our Field of 40 Footsteps episode. Hi, I'm Natalie, and I'm a myth truster for this episode because the footsteps could just have been covered up by new soil that someone put there. Also, me and my brother love listening to this podcast. Well, thanks so much, Natalie, and your nameless brother. Hello, nameless brother. Thank you both for listening. And you're right. Who knows? Maybe someone just covered up the Field of 40 Footsteps and it's under there somewhere. Someone needs to hire some worms to find it.
Ted commented on our Spotify Q&A on our episode on the Oakville Blobs. Hi, I am Ted. I am 8 years old. I'm a teen truster on the Oakville Blobs because the evidence says that it must really exist. And I love this podcast. Bye. Well, Ted, you've listened to the evidence. You think they exist. I can't argue with that. And also, you love the podcast. So you're right about some things.
Nina has left us a message on Spotify Q&A about the alien astronauts of Nazca. And Nina has put, truster because I believe in loads of stuff. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? I suppose if you believe in loads of stuff, why not believe in even more things? That's lovely. Well, thanks, Nina, and thanks for being on Team Truster.
Such brilliant messages. We have fantastic listeners.
The very best. And if you enjoyed the show, please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or Amazon Music or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more great episodes. We love to hear what you think, so please do rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps more detectives find, bust or trust. And of course, we'll read out some of your comments on the show.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for more Bust or Trust.
What a great mystery. I think I'll get up and stretch my legs.
Oh, Tiernan, first it was footprints, now it's crumbs. You've got crumbs all over your chair.
Oops.
Hang on a minute. Those look like brown breadcrumbs. I make my sandwiches with brown bread and... smells a lot like peanut butter. Hey, you ate my sandwich.
Okay, I did. I thought they were team sandwiches. But aren't you relieved it was me and not the sandwich dragon?
I think a sandwich dragon would make less mess.